much. Huge welcome to Collette Osborne of Hairven Salon, Fiona Fowley of Zen Lifestyle, and Mark Blake of Mark Blake Tricology. It is fantastic to see you all guys this morning, and thank you so much for taking the time. Now, you are all hugely successful salon owners in your own right, without a doubt. You've all got more than one salon, different areas of the country and different specialities. Fiona, with you being beauty and spa, and Mark and Collette doing hair. And I think, Collette, you do some beauty too, if I'm not mistaken. We want to share in the next 30 to 40 minutes as much as possible for those watching and joining us from around the world on how to go about opening their own salon if they're an aspirational therapist or stylist, or if they're a salon owner, sharing tips and techniques, and also kind of pitfalls and mistakes that you guys have made along the way to help people learn and either run their businesses better or to take that all important step to opening their own business. So floor is open. So if we start, I think for me, salon, opening a salon, one of my closest friends who is a salon owner said, opening a salon is signing up to a lifetime. You're a business owner and it's everything that entails. It's not running a column, it's not running a beauty room. There's a lot more to it to that. So the floor is yours. Who would like to start first? Should we go to you? Do you want to go, Collette?
Well, I'll go, yes. I think you're quite right, Jane, your friend's quite right. Hello, everybody. Yeah, it is. It's a labour of love. It's the most amazing thing you'll ever do. It's like having a child. It's kind of such hard work. And it is. You work 24/7. There's no clocking off. And I think your friend's quite right, because, it's incredibly difficult to run and operate a salon from behind the chair. Okay. That's one thing that I find a lot of business owners and salon owners that I talk to struggle with. So that's really important. But, let's be honest here. You've all got the skills in hair. You're all amazing, talented people, because you've done all that. So when it comes to the business side, it's just about setting your foundations in correctly and knowing exactly what you want from this, because you're going to create the beautiful hair, you're going to create the amazing cuts. You've been doing that. This is about now getting the foundations in business so that you can actually then use that platform to build your business off. And I think that's really important, because I think being a hairdresser myself, it's really hard, isn't it, sometimes, because you're so kind of consumed by the creative side, you forget a little bit. It's like buying a house. It's like that kind of thing. You don't realise all the little things that come behind it that you really do need to know. So, yes.
And Fiona, we were catching up just now. You were saying for you it was a real labour of love, because actually it started with you had to teach yourself all those skills, including kind of IT and these kind of things.
Yeah, I think exactly what Collette said is true. It's kind of like most people, when they set up their business, have the hands-on skills. You're a very, very good beauty therapist. You've maybe rented a room or worked for someone else, and you've maybe built up a clientele, and you know everything that there is to know about beauty and hands-on and clients and customer care. But opening a salon needs a whole different set of skills. And you end up dealing with a lot of stuff that maybe isn't really why you got into the beauty industry, in the first place. So I absolutely love hands-on. I love the interaction with customers and clients. I love being at the front desk. And I love the interaction with staff now from the point of view of, that personal skill. But, accounting, paperwork, legislation, HR, all the other things that come with it, I don't love. No. I really don't love, and it's not my strength. So I suppose my advice would be to try and surround yourself with people that have the strengths that you don't have, and to know your strengths and weaknesses, and to really play to your strengths. I know that a certain side of the financial, I have to understand it and I have to know it, but it's not my strength. So I make sure that I'm surrounded by people that have these strengths. And I think that being able to know what your strengths and weaknesses are before you get into it is really important. IT is not my thing at all. And, I need to know a certain amount of it. But again, I have other people in place to help me with that. The difficulty is when you first open is you don't always have the finance or the resources to pay these expert people. Yeah. You're doing a lot of it yourself. So, you do have to kind of, learn a bit and do it yourself to begin with until you are in a position that you can maybe pay to put these people in place to help you. It's definitely a labor of love, and it's definitely a lot of hard work. I mean, when I opened my first salon, I worked for the first 9 months, 7 days a week. I took Christmas Day and Boxing Day off in the first and the second, and I opened at 7:30 in the morning and I worked at 10 at night. And I did the cleaning, I did absolutely everything. And the first holiday that I had, I can honestly say I slept for 3 days. I woke up and I didn't even know where I was. You know, it was like, what time of day is it? I was absolutely shattered. And you have to just work so hard to build it up. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you need
it's probably not for you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I
Mark,
think it is quite. Oh, sorry, Jane, go on.
Sorry, Mark. For you, Fiona's touched on the having the right people around you. I know for you, you've had a very long-standing relationship with Wella Professionals. So I'm assuming part of that was product, but it was also support. I mean, do you talk us through that?
Incredibly supportive. In fact, you know, with my journey with trichology to get hairdressers to know more about trichology, I went around manufacturers and actually said, look, I think there's something, you know, hairdressers, most people know how to cut hair and colour hair, but they don't know very much about hair loss. And I want to teach hairdressers about this. I think this has got legs. And they were probably one of the only manufacturers that thought, actually, this is right. So there's been a great sort of journey with myself in Wella, and they've been incredibly supportive with it. But, you know, as regards choosing the right product manufacturer, yeah, it's important. But also, I think you also need, when you're setting up a salon, you know best where the plugs should go. I mean, we've just set up a salon, and, you know, I'm working with the plumbers and saying, I want a rodding point there. And they're like, well, I was going to put it there. No. That is where the blockage is going to be. And it's me who unblocks it. You know, we have a thing that says in an emergency phone, you know, 999. And underneath it says in an emergency phone Mark. Because it's always me who's unblocking a loo or something like that. And I know where the plugs are. In our new shop we've just done, we've already thought, where are the Christmas trees going to go? So even though we were doing this in March, we've already put the electrical points in for the Christmas trees. And, you know, there's a water tap that goes onto the street. So we can wash the pavement down every morning, but it's turned off from inside. So a lot of it is thinking ahead. And some of these tradespeople, yes, they know their job, but we know it better than them when we sit down and think, right, we want this, and I want the lights to turn off at 10 o'clock. I don't want them to be on till then. And we put like a fast man out switch, so all the lights turn off when you leave, but it just has night setting. So it is very, and Colette's right, and Fiona, that there is so much to do, and you will not have a life when you open your first or set. Whenever you open a salon, you have no life. Forget your life, because that is it. You will be at work, and it doesn't matter. Some days the glamour goes out of it, and you're in the, you know, your slouchy sort of, you know, leisure wear, and you've got plaster in your hair and this, that, and the other, and you just got to live with it. But, you know, the fruits are there, but you just got to put the effort in at the beginning to get the fruits at the end, really.
And for all of you guys,
admit, Mark, I was just going to say, I must admit, Mark, you know, what you were saying about plumbing, there ain't much you don't know about plumbing now. Do you know what I mean? over 20 years, how many plumbing issues, you know? It's just like...
So when they say, oh, you need a boiler this size, I say, okay, I'll have 2 of them. No, you won't need, no, I want 2 of them. And if not, I want your mobile number so I can publish your sort of social media so all the clients can phone you when we run out of hot water. And that's it, they'll soon put 2 in then.
But you are quite right there, Mark, because, you know, one of the things is people trusting what they know and how a salon operates is really important. Don't forget, I mean, my background, I come from the opposite. I've done 25 years in commercial finance and business implementations and systems. I've learned to be, or trained to be, a hairdresser at 40. And I'm going to tell you now, the amount of information you know about your business already is there. And it's like Mark said, you know, it's about educating other trades, because anybody who's gone into a business, stripped it out and had the drills in their hand and doing it, you're quite right, Mark, in where do the plugs go, because they'll tell you something different. But again, I mean, something I would like to kind of bring up, if I may, I think one of the key things with a business as well is knowing what you want from it. Mark has got the most amazing brand, and I want to borrow your wife, by the way. Sorry to tell you that, she's amazing. But the thing is, you know, the brand, what are you trying to build? What do you want this business to do for you at retirement? Before, I sound like a bit like your mum and dad now, so I do apologise, but what do you want this business to do for you in the future? If it's a hobby and that's all it's going to be, then fine, but manage your own expectations. If you want this business to be something that helps you to retirement and gives your children a future, then work back from there. The other thing is, like Fiona was saying, I mean, one of the key things is, look, I do hair. I am nowhere near the talent that we have on our shop floor, nowhere near. And I will never claim to be the most amazing hairdresser. I'm a good business person, but I'm not the most amazing hairdresser. And I'm now doing trichology because I'm kind of that side mark, you know, the kind of, you know, that looks to get into the detail. But I think the key thing is all the skill sets you have around you, listen, open your ears and listen to what everybody says, because there's information there that you can actually use in a really, really positive way. There's lots of business information out there in the nicest possible way. Please don't be intimidated by accountants and people like that, because I could throw a stick now and find 50 accountants. I can't throw a stick and find 50 talented stylists or beauticians. I think that's fair to say. So there's lots of information out there. And I think the thing is we underestimate what we're capable of in the first place. So I think, you know, if you get the right skill sets around you, like Fiona said, that's it. But you just.
So what about when you're looking at locations? I mean, how do you decide? Is it a case of, you know, what you want your brand to look like, so then you find the location, or do you find the location and make your brand fit? How do you guys make that work? Because you've all got multiple sites.
There's a bit of, you know where you'd like to be, but can you afford to be there? And so there's a bit of a sort of trade in sort of thing, and certain locations are good for passing sort of trade, and others, you know, I speak to stylists that come in for interviews, and I say sometimes about, do you get much sort of walk-in business before COVID sort of thing, and they're like, no, we don't get any. But you know, our locations, we get a really healthy amount of people sort of wanting to just come in. But I think because we're very visible, but it's location, but also you've got to stand out for the right reasons. And I've always had this big thing, you know, hairdressers have pictures in their windows, and what worries me about it is they have hairdressing pictures in their windows to impress other hairdressers, not
absolutely
clients. And what they forget is sometimes it puts the public off, because it's like some abstract hairstyle and they're like, I don't want to look like that. But as a hairdresser, you think, wow, you know, but they've done a number. That's a really pertinent point, because I had a very well-known hairdresser say to me, it's taken me 30 years to realise that the pictures I like creating are not the pictures customers want to see in the shop window. And you know, your shop window has to reflect who you are as a brand, to not scare potential new customers, doesn't it? And so Fiona, for you, finding location, was it also about scoping out competitors, traffic, you know?
For me, one of the most important things I think that you're ever going to decide when you first open a salon, especially if it's your first one, is location. I just think that is so important, because it can really kind of make or break you. And I think, you know, looking at your sort of at the time when you start and you've not got, you know, other staff maybe working for you, bringing in that money, you need to look at what your fixed overheads are, because obviously as you expand, one of your biggest overheads is your, you know, staff costs. But when you start, it's just yourself. Your biggest overhead, you know, is going to be your rent and rates. And also, you know, remember to look at the rates as well, because if you've got a very good location, your rates are going to be high. So I think you need to kind of look at that and then work out, you know, what you need to bring in from the point of view, if you've got a location that you really like, what you need to break in, if it's just yourself initially that's working, to be able to, you know, pay your rent and rates overhead in the first place. You know, do you know, have a clientele that, if you're not in a very, very busy, you know, visible area, that are going to come, you know, with you? Or do you need to be somewhere where the footfall is a lot higher? And from that point of view, you could be in somewhere where there's a lot of footfall, but how visible are you? Are you, you know, up some stairs? Are you, you know, street level? What size are the you know, for example, we've got a salon in town which is sort of right on a corner, and it's got very, very large windows, which is great. But in commercial property, you pay a premium for the front part of your shop. So the window space is very, very expensive. You know, where we've got another salon in actually a residential area that's got brilliant footfall, but a much smaller shop front and downstairs in the basement. And I think, you know, which is much cheaper. And I think for starting up, if you're going to invest in a, you know, rental agreement, trying to look at something that you can maybe extend into. So maybe you might do, you know, a renovation on, say, the ground floor and set up 2 rooms, but once you build up, you can maybe go downstairs, or, you know, that type of thing. So you're not spending all your money on this massive shop fit, but you can expand without having to open a second location. You've still got room to grow, and making that overhead work for you. You know, I think that, you know, one of the most important things with me when I opened the salon, which was relatively small salon to begin with, but the hours that I opened, I made that overhead work for me, because I worked, you know, it was open from 7:30 till 10 o'clock at night, and it was open 7 days a week. So I was making sure, before I spent the money on opening a second salon, which wasn't till 5 years later, that it was absolutely going, you know, gangbusters. You know, I couldn't have got any more money out of that salon. It was chock-a-block. And then looking at expanding. So I think as well, thinking ahead about maybe having the ability to extend within the premises you're in, especially if it's your first one. But, you know, location is just, you know, massively key. And I think that this is a brilliant time to look at some quite good deals. From the point of view of negotiation and rent-free periods and stuff like that. So it's a great time to be looking at it. In some ways it is for great deals. In other ways you need to be thinking very long term. Obviously once this time passes, but you'll get some really good rent-free deals and great, you know, people are wanting to rent out commercial properties right now.
One of my sort of things is that when you take on a commercial property, you're looking at it as it is now, but remember, when you leave, you will get clobbered for dilapidations. And in all our properties, I've probably taken 1,000 photographs of the building before we've gone in, and they're lodged with the solicitor. So when, if ever we do leave, and they say you've got to put it back in the condition you found it, I will. I'll spray everywhere and this, that and the other, because here's the photographs of how we saw it and how we took it on. So dilapidations, you can get caught for 100,000, maybe more. And
that's key, Mark. That is key, because the key thing with the lease, especially now, coming back to what Fiona was saying, and definitely what Mark was saying, we did the same. We had a survey on the whole building, catalogued every single room, every single wall, everything else. And we had it written into our lease that if ever we leave, the landlord has to pay us to keep it as we've put it. But that's changed now because I've purchased the building. However, the point is, coming back to, you know, what Fiona was saying on location, I think, you know, it's like anything. It's like buying a house. The location has to be exactly right for what you're looking to do. And I think, you know, coming back to what Mark was saying, have a really good commercial lawyer, future-proof your lease as much as possible, because landlords right now, sorry, I'm a landlord myself, so I will put things in there that will obviously future-proof my business. But equally at the same time, you need to protect yourself against that and get the right advice. Don't just go signing a lease. Make sure you negotiate the terms, you negotiate rent-free periods, like Fiona said. Make sure you negotiate the future-proof and any license to works, and you have the correct clauses to put in for any rent increases, so the tenant clause is in there. So a good lawyer will save you a lot in the future, like Mark said, on dilapidation. That's really important.
I think
so
also, as you said, as you were sort of mentioned there, Collette, now obviously when you're setting up a salon, you're not in a position obviously to do this depending on your funds, but as you touched on, Collette, you know, if you are in a position to be able to buy the property, you know, if it's a small one or, you know, whatever, depending on your financial situation, or sometimes you can do if you rent for a couple of years with the option to buy, which was a situation I was in at one point, where I rented first and then that was an option. And that's brilliant, because as Collette sort of touched on, thinking about when you're retiring or pension or, you know, whatever, it's obviously the same way that, you know, with renting or buying your own home, the same with a commercial property. And it means then that, you know, you're paying your own, coming for the future.
And there's a lot of tax efficient things you can do there with that. So it's really important. I mean, believe me, I'm 49 years old. I'm not that far off. So, you know, when you get there, you need to make sure you make provision. And when you have kids at my ages, they're quite expensive. So
they get more expensive.
They do get more expensive. But I think that's key as well, because we don't think enough. I mean, look, you know, like I said, we don't think enough about the future. And you really have to, and what Mark said as well, is visualizing what you can see, and whatever you can see is to actually get that written into any contract. Because
don't ever think that solicitors know it all. I've had things where we've actually sold a freehold property that was invested in a pension, a SIP, and the people that were buying it, the trust, through a firm of accountants, didn't realise they had to register for VAT because we were already registered for VAT. And I think, hold on, you're an accountant, how do you not realise these things? And so sometimes you can say that and some hairdressers might think, oh, I'm not sure, is that illegal or whatever? Say, can I have an off the record conversation? You know, can this be? And I've had things for now where they've said, oh no. And I said, well, how about if I word it this way? And they go, oh, you can do that. And they're not creative people. So
no, you're not trained to be creative, they're trained to keep score. And I think that the key thing there, look, there's different classifications of accountant, just like there is stylist. There's accountants, and we keep score, and we give historical data, and we submit to Companies House, wherever else, what your tax position is. And strategic advisors are your tax advisors. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like I did the same, Mark. I kind of purchased my buildings, put them into trust funds for my children, took them out of capital gains and inheritance tax and everything else. And I did that quite a while ago. But the thing is, this is where people get confused. They expect their accountant to run the business. They won't run your business. But like Mark said, you know far more than they do. You know far more than they do. But what you've got to do, like Mark said, is say, look, you know, can I have some advice on this? If I do it this way and this way, does that work? And then bring in your lawyer, because they've all got different skill sets and expertise. And don't think you can't actually approach this subject, you know.
And question it.
Absolutely question everything, because you know what you want. And it's got to work for you. It's almost like designing a car. Okay, these are the wheels I want it to go at this speed. I want to get to my destination at this time. How do I get there? So if you actually pull all that together and build it, it actually works really well. So I think, you know, that what Mark just said, absolutely 100%, you know, get the right advice and actually challenge it, but get a good tax advisor. Okay. And if you haven't got one, I give tax advice all the time, but there's plenty of forums where you can get it.
And likely
all the time
to go under is in your first year of trading.
Absolutely.
So you need to make sure that your first year of trading, that you've got all your ducks in a row, because it gets easier after that first year. But that first year, you've got to make sure that you've got the money or the resources, everything. Because what would be the point of going through all that heartache and setting everything up, and then somebody else to just post in with this lovely place?
Absolutely. So can I talk about, sorry, Fiona.
No. I was just going to say, in the first year, I just think it's really important. It sounds really, really basic, but, you know, don't run out of cash.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway,
sorry. Can we talk about recruitment? Because obviously, you know, you've got the brand, but your brands are only as good as your people. So, so we had one question from Katrina McClare. If you take over a business, would you keep the existing team? How did you all approach recruitment, and in terms of taking references, clarifying roles and responsibilities? So open forum. I
think the key thing for Katrina first is, if you're purchasing a business outright and you're purchasing everything with it, under TUPE regulations, the contracts still stand. Okay. I think a lot of people go into this, purchase a business, say, well, actually, I don't particularly want this kind of, you know, team or whatever. No, they're protected under employment law. So you've got to be really careful with that, and seek advice. I think with regards to recruitment, do you know what? I think there's one fundamental thing for me in recruitment that I look for, and that is a nice person.
Yeah.
A nice person.
But you're not allowed to say happy, just to be clear.
Well,
in the UK, for those that are watching from overseas, somebody advertised for a happy stylist and had to take the word happy out of the advertisement.
Yeah, it's our PC gone wrong. But the thing is, you know, if somebody's got a skill, you can train skill. You can't change personality.
You can't change disposition.
No. And do you know what? I'm going to make this for my business. They don't work for me. I work for them. Okay, as a director of a company, I work for them. So I think the key thing is when you're selecting or you're looking for a team, you know, you've got to know firstly what your clientele is, your brand is, and what your end goal is. If you want a brand, then you need to make sure you go down the road of kind of employment. If you're not interested in a brand and you just want to rent seats out and get bumps on seats, then go down the other route. But be very clear on what your model is first. That's how you then go to your recruitment, by knowing what you're looking to actually achieve. I think a lot of people just kind of go, well, I'll rent and I'll employ, go into the middle of it without looking at any of the kind of legal obligations and then have an issue. But that's why I was saying earlier, build your foundations. But recruitment, you know, look, there's amazing people out there, some amazing people. And I think the key thing is as well, don't be afraid of our younger generation, because you know what, they're tomorrow's stylists and they are amazing. You know, these are people we can really kind of, you know, change and evolve with. So recruitment's not as bad as people think it is. I think it's quite good.
We've had more people apply lately. Worryingly for the guys in London, you know, we're 120 miles from London, but we have so many London stylists wanting to get out and thinking, well, you know, I could buy a house in Gloucestershire for say 400,000. What would be 1.5 million in Putney? So I actually don't need to earn as much. And this whole sort of COVID thing has made them think about what I want in my lifestyle, which has been great for us, that we're picking up some fantastic stylists that are coming in. But then the other thing you have to remember is they have no clients. So if you was having a team of David Beckhams, if you've got no ball. And, you've got
great analogy.
Yes, good analogy. Has he got one? Sorry, I'm not going to say that. But the other thing is, as well, if I was opening a salon now, so let's say Colette's opening a salon, any of us, don't forget, right now, there are so many grants for you, so many opportunities to actually get government funding to support your first year. So you've got the Kickstarter scheme, but you know, we just need to kind of look at that in a little bit more detail because it is quite difficult. But you've got startup schemes, you've got enterprise schemes, you've got local growth hubs. They want businesses to open. So if you want to get some funding to help you through your first year, now's the time to do it. That will help with recruitment. I mean, we're the same, Mark. The amount of people that have sent CVs into us because they want employment, they want security. I get that through this because, you know, we're going in from a pandemic to a recession. But please don't be daunted by that. Lipstick effect. Our industry is the only industry that can thrive in a recession. So
it's an opportunity.
It's a massive opportunity. And I think, you know, if you actually get the right grants and funding in place, that could actually end up paying for most of your first year. The other thing is as well, I think it's really important. I don't know what you guys think, but I think with regards to starting your own salon in your first trading year, you will be working to pay the bills. You won't be working to make profit. Okay. Not all the time. It's just making sure that if your model's set up correctly, then you'll be on the way to that. But there's lots of opportunities at the moment, so please don't be daunted by it. And don't let the C word, shall I say, let's silence it, scare you into thinking you can't do anything, because now is the opportunity to get it and run with it, I think.
Yeah, I agree regarding all the grants and things that are available. I think there's, you know, a lot of opportunity there for people to get great deals, as we've discussed already on the commercial, but also the grants that are available. So I think, you know, it is a really, really good time. And just to come back to the sort of the recruitment, the question, I mean, I couldn't agree more with Collette. I mean, after years and years and years of interviewing and recruiting, you know, what we do is we're specialists in the industry. We can train, you know, I can pretty much take a therapist with a good attitude, you know, to do a good treatment. You know, that is part of our job. You know, we do a lot of training within the salon, but I have to, you know, like and get the person. You can't give that person a good work ethic or a positive attitude or whatever, but I can get them to do a good massage. I can get them to do a good facial, you know, as long as they're teachable. So I think that it's, you know, take all the fluff away from around it. It's really just what that person is like, a person, really.
Yeah, no, I get it. And isn't it, I mean, how do you guys feel about it? Because often I think communication is key when you're building a team. They need to know what your vision is and where they fit into that vision. But I also think you need guidelines and protocols around what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, so there's no grey. Now, that's often, I think, something that can be overlooked when you're a new business, because it's all a bit daunting. Fiona, how did you start that because you literally started on your own and were there 24/7 when you started to employ a team? How did, because your team are so united, actually all your teams are so united.
Do you know, it's really, really strange actually, because yes, you do learn, you learn from mistakes. I can't say I went in with a complete vision about what I was going to do. Listen, I walked in, I saw property, I went for it gung-ho, I went to the bank before I had a business plan, I did everything upside down and back to front. And you just learn, the first shop fit I did, I look back on it now and it's just hysterical. It was a disaster really. But, you learn from it as you go along. And yeah, I think that one thing that we were quite lucky with was we always had a very good culture from the beginning. And I think that that's something that's, it comes from the top down. And, I made mistakes along the way, but the one thing that from the outset I was really sure about was the way that my staff interacted and spoke to each other and respected each other, and the values that I had in the business. Now we've got a set of values and we've got all the, as most of us do, have the procedures in place. I didn't in the beginning, but I always had what I knew was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable, and how we interacted together. And I think having a really, really strong culture within the salon is absolutely paramount to success. And about probably over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, I've worked really hard on just sort of, and it took me that long, probably 10 years of being in business before I started to look at putting really strong systems in place. And it's funny you should say that, Jane, but my whole thing is no grey area. So it's not about being really strict, it is about that staff want fairness. As long as you're fair, that's one of the most important things. As long as you're fair across the board, it doesn't matter, if it's quite harsh, it's got to be fair. And, the whole way that we run it is no grey areas. This is kind of what it is, and people know where they're at. But focus very, very much on a coaching culture, I would say, is what we have in the salon now.
Yeah.
Mark, sorry.
No, I was going to say you can be firm but fair, and
absolutely.
We have this whole thing, and we say it's got to be kind to each other, and I think once you make sure that people are being kind, because not being funny, in the past our industry can be seen to being a little bit bitchy in the past, but
absolutely.
So that's the one thing I would say, Mark. Funny you're touching on this sort of bitchy industry, sort of from the word go. The one thing I had from day one of employing a member of staff, and I would say to them at an interview, you're here more hours a week than you are at home or really with your friends. Okay.
Absolutely.
The one thing is, I just will not tolerate any bitchiness at all. Like I just won't. And it just, it just doesn't happen. I don't know how we managed it, but it just doesn't happen. But you have to nip it in the bud if it ever creeps in, because it's just
kind to each other. I think that's sort of. I viewed as a London stylist last week, and before he'd even done his trade test, I thought, he's a really nice guy. As long as he ticks the box of the trade, because you get the gut instinct for a reason. You thought, he's a nice guy. He's going to fit in perfectly.
And you have to trust your gut. I mean, Fiona Fowley, sorry, and apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly, said personality is everything: natural integrity, honesty, kindness to others, and sincerity. And that they're all the things you can't teach, but you absolutely want from a member of staff. There's lots of love for you guys on the chat, so thank you, Honora, Tanya, and lots of people. Relly Holden's asking a question about if you take a salon with an existing team, and actually I think it's a huge question about, can you appraise them with their skills, for their hours? I think that's probably one that she needs to talk to either an association in her country, if there's a kind of an equivalent of the Hair and Barber Council, or the NHBF if she's not in the UK, because depending on where they're located, there will be different rules around the whole 2P integration process. I can't believe we're already 35 minutes in and we've got so much still to talk about. Just for you guys, I mean, one thing I think is about understanding, and as you said, Fiona, you don't necessarily have to, but you do need to understand your P&L and what that looks like. And it's about that tax compliance, lease agreements, health and safety. There is all of that stuff. Is there any advice you can give to people, just kind of each of you maybe take one aspect and just say where to go, or what would your advice be on those kind of non-technical skills?
Okay. Well, as the accountant in the room, should I cover a bit of that? Try to. Okay, so it's like, right, the first thing is running your business finances is no different to what you do at home. I could ask you all now what your mortgage payments are, what you pay on. A lot of you won't obviously confess what you spend on beauty and hair and makeup and clothing and whatever else. But even so, you know your numbers, okay? It's the same in business. It's no more complicated than that. And I think people get overcomplicated and scared of the actual financial side of it, the tax side of it, and the responsibility of it. So with that, I think what you have to know is you have to have a broad understanding of what it all means. You don't have to try and be an accountant. You don't have to try and be a lawyer. You don't have to try and be any of those things. You actually get the correct advice in so you can concentrate on what you do best, which is doing what you do, okay? It's obviously very difficult, especially with us all internationally, even in the US, because California is like UK law, the US has got state law, and then we come over to the UK and we've got legislation changing all the time. So I think now is the time to actually, even if you've got a business, look, let's be honest, guys, even in my business, it doesn't always go right. I've had challenges. We all do. We all fall flat on our face and have to get back up. But it comes from the start. If you get the correct systems and documentation in place, because at some point they will be tested when relationships usually fall down, and then you've got to make sure they're right, okay? So there's lots of tax advice you can get. There's lots of financial help you can get. There's lots of employment law you can get free of charge from the government, okay? And there are grants actually out at the moment in the UK for this, up to £1,000 to £5,000 for IT, HR, financial and legal advice for your business. So if you're starting, or even if you're in a salon that needs, I call it underpinning, okay? Just like underpinning your house, you haven't got these systems in place, please don't be worried about it. You know, I've had people come to me from Salon Owners United and say, well, I haven't got any contracts. I went, don't worry about it. We'll get you some contracts. We'll get them underpinned. We'll get it sorted. And now they can sleep at night. So I always say this, and coming from the wider business industry, please, guys, it's not just our industry. I used to have people who were non-compliant with HMRC, and they'll be sitting up 3-4 hours a night just trying to work out what VAT was. So this is everywhere. All small business owners wear many hats. You just have to choose which hat you want to wear. Okay.
No, it's good advice.
Somebody else, else you'll be plate spinning, and you'll be trying the things that keep you awake at night. This is what I always say: the things that you worry about, if it's a numbers thing or anything else, write them down in a list, and then let's offset that skill.
Tick it off.
That way, you can concentrate on running your business.
And Mark, what about?
When you're setting up a new salon, the one thing that, you know, as we've said, cash flows and things like that are very important. Well, how much you put in the bank. And if you've got electricians and shop fitters and things like that, one key question I would always ask them is, what date are you going to put on the invoice? Now, the worst thing you can do is have a date that is after your first quarter. So you'd be really surprised. Well, they'll say, well, what date do you want? You know, you don't want to not claim that VAT on your first quarter. The VAT bill, and you're going to get it back in another 3 months. But hey, that's too late. So, you know, I'd say to any of the suppliers like that, you know, well, I will give you this contract, but I need the invoice date to be this. You know, you might be spending 100, 200,000 pounds. That can make a hell of a difference. And so don't be afraid to ask. Just because they start it then and they finish it then, well, what date are they going to put on? So don't be afraid to ask. And to me, that can really save, you know, your skin in the early days.
And you can get an interim bill put in. And also, on that note, you can claim any expenses that you've actually applied to the business 12 months before, up to 12 months before.
Great advice. Fiona?
I'm not going to talk anything to do with anything like accounts or tax, because that's just not my thing. So I would just get the specialists and put that over to somebody else. You know, my thing, probably one of the challenges that I think is quite difficult when you open a business, although I must say at this point, having chatted all of us for quite a while, can't imagine anyone wanting to set up a business now. So I think what's probably fair to point out is that although there are a lot of challenges, and we don't have time to go through this just now, there are a lot of positives that make it very, very rewarding, and we wouldn't all be doing it if that was not the case. So there are a lot of positives. But just for me, I think one of the challenges was probably staff management, you know, because that was one of the things that was so important to me to get right, to have that united team with the positive culture. And you know, I did learn a lot on the job, but for me, I found after having the business maybe for sort of like 10 years or so, that I hadn't done any sort of work on myself, which sounds a bit, but I hadn't, you know, I'd been focusing so much in the business or on all the things that we're talking about, accounting and tax. I hadn't really done any of the softer skills. So, you know, I did a coaching course, and, you know, a lot of things like that actually really, really helped me in general communication and dealing with staff. And it actually made my life so much easier because I just understood a lot more about these softer skills. And if I had my time again, I would probably work on that area earlier on in my career. I found it very, very beneficial. So that's probably an area that I kind of enjoy a lot more. And I think with that, a lot of it is about being very organized and making sure that you've got the time to either do, you know, management training with your managers or one-to-ones or review training, so that everyone kind of is very, very good at these areas and that your staff are getting the continual backup and support they need. And lastly, just I think regarding if you are opening a salon and you're hands-on, being realistic about you know, we've talked a lot about spinning plates and all the different hats you need to wear and things like that. You know, it is very difficult if you're trying to work a really busy column and come out of that and be, you know, doing a whole load of other things. So maybe be realistic about how much full-time hands-on you can do when you're trying to, you know, at some point, if you want to expand your business and you want to work on your business, you have to stand back from the hands-on, and you need to ask yourself, you know, if you're not going to stand back from the hands-on, you need to hand over certain things to someone else that can oversee the business for you, if that's the area that you still want to focus on. But trying to do it all just isn't sustainable.
Won't work. It won't work. I mean, I don't think any of you put anybody off, because actually we've run for 45 minutes, which we weren't going to do, and you've absolutely given so much useful information for people. We are going to share your social media handles in the Facebook feed and in the chat, because I know you guys are happy for people to contact you if they want any help and advice. Go on, Mark.
Before I set up sort of salons, I phoned up a load of hairdressers and said, can I come and look at your business? But I don't want to look at anything financial. So I was fortunate enough, I know we mentioned him earlier before we came on screen, Ken Picton. Showed me all the way around his beautiful salon. I wanted to see his boiler room, how he did his towels, this and that. Charlie Miller's, you know, they showed me all the way around their business, a salon in Bromsgrove. I've been to so many salons because none of us had any training in setting up a salon. So we've all done it our own particular way. And so what I wanted to do is take those one little bit from all these people and try and create something. And when you phone up somebody who's not in your area and, you know, just say, can I come and look at it? They go, yeah, you know, they're really pleased to know you're. And you know, our industry is great for that. I'm not saying you do it to your neighbour, but it's a fantastic thing seeing how their business is, and you end up going for lunch with them and this, that, and the other. And it's a great thing, our industry, for sharing things like that.
And we have got an amazing network. We've got an amazing network of incredible people in our industry. And the other thing is as well, making sure, you know, you do engage with your brand partners, be it Wella and stuff like that, because I think that's important as well, because they can equally give a lot of advice, because they're in a lot of salons. You know, we're based in Nottingham. You know, we've got Salon Owners United with 3,000 members. If anybody needs to see a salon operation, I'd be more than happy to have a coffee and a walk around, as long as you bring some donuts. Okay. You know, the thing is, you've got to bring food, you know. So the thing is, you know, absolutely. The one thing that we have got right now, and you've all got the opportunity, is this pool and wealth of knowledge, because all salon owners are now uniting. We're all very much united, and we're working for each other, the betterment of our industry. So absolutely. 100%. I think that's a brilliant suggestion, Mark. I'm coming to your place, by the way.
Most salon,
you bring donuts.
I mean, most salon owners want to speak about their passion, because they're so passionate about it. Give them a chance. I know if it's me, once I get started, I can't stop. So most salon owners, given the chance for someone to ask them questions and, you know, tell them how great their business is, they're pretty happy to listen, you know, and give you advice.
No, it's true. Thank you so much. I think I was just going to say, again, talking to another stylist, said starting a new business is a lot like a new relationship. If you get the foundations right, it will help ensure growth and stability once the honeymoon period is over. So thank you, Marina Vogt, for that. But I think that absolutely, and actually that sums up the essence of the conversations we've been having this morning. I can't thank you guys enough for giving up your time to share. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to Wella Professionals. We have dropped the Wella.com address for anyone to go and have a look, and also for education, go to education.wella.com. And then obviously the brand's on Facebook at Wella Professionals, and Instagram for the UK is at Wella Hair UKI. And we will also put, if it's okay with you guys, all your handles in the Facebook chat so people can comment directly. But there's been a lot of comments and a lot of loves and a lot of gratitude for you all. So thank you very, very much for your time this morning. And we will see you all, but hopefully see you all in person very, very soon.
Oh, HJ!
Yay! All right, take care. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.